Hey everybody, welcome to Marriage Moment. I'm Jason, this is Renee. We are going through this little book right here, The 4 Seasons of Marriage, Secrets to a Lasting Marriage, and thank you to our lovely daughter-in-law, my very favorite daughter-in-law ever. She pointed out that we've already kind of gone over this about 18 months ago. We skimmed this, we just barely hit the surface, and we are going to spend the next 8 weeks digging in pretty deep because there are some very, very significant things that we need to talk about when we say seasons of marriage. So when you hear us, or when you hear the concept of seasons of marriage, we live season to season physically, but a season can take a long time. That's not really what we're looking at here. Doesn't necessarily mean that spring lasts for 3 months. And then you move to summer, and that's 3 months, and then fall, and then winter. That's not really the way it works. Josiah and I played golf last year in Albuquerque in May, and the morning started off crisp and beautiful, and then it got hot, then it got rainy, and then it snowed on us. It's New Mexico weather.
Everything in one day.
We had all 4 seasons in less than a day. And the truth is, whatever season you're in, you really might not be there for very long. So you have to recognize where you are. And I think that's good news because we're starting off with the hard season, and that is winter. A season of winter. What does that look like, and what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so we want to push back on, some people like winter. They like snow.
I like winter. I like to go
winter too.
skiing, and it's beautiful. I like the cold.
Yeah, there's beautiful things about winter. So we want to push back on that because that's not actually what we're talking about.
Right.
Not that side of winter.
Right.
So when it comes to winter in a marriage, we want to give some information about what winter is like in a marriage when it goes into that season, and then some things that we can do to move out of that.
Yeah. So what does a winter in a marriage look like? What are the words that we need to associate?
We want to think, when we think of winter in a marriage, we want to think difficulty, coldness, harshness, and bitterness. That doesn't sound good for a marriage.
No, none of those things do.
Yeah. So it's sad that the book says some couples live in cold silence. I think I have known couples.
Sure, I think we all have.
A few couples in our lives that have done this. And they live independent lives even though they're living in the same house. So he mentioned that most of the couples that come to him for counseling, the author of the book, most of them are in a winter season.
100% of the people that come to me as a pastor looking for help with their marriage are in a winter season. Cold, harsh, bitter, really, really hard. Nobody has ever called me and said, "Pastor, our marriage is so awesome right now. We just want to come and talk to you about it."
Yeah.
They've never done that. But people call me all the time and say, "Pastor, our marriage is so bad right now. We need to come talk to you about it."
Yeah. And so this is a really hard thing to hear, this part. Normally in a marriage, when you find yourself in a winter, either one or both of the spouses, the partners, are being rigid.
Dug their heels in and said, "My way or the highway."
Yeah.
It's got to happen my way.
Like they're unwilling to just consider the other person's feelings and their perspective, or to even think about a compromise. That's hard.
Yeah. And this next thought on your sheet was really liberating for me today because you asked me the other day, do you think the summer was a winter for us because of when I was sick?
Yeah.
I was sick for almost 8 weeks and it was hard on our marriage. And I said, well, yeah, of course that was a winter. But after reading this, he would not describe that as a winter. That was a difficult time for us. But he says that winter is not caused by difficulties in life. It's caused by the way we respond to them.
Yeah.
And so we did not respond by being harsh and bitter and cold to each other. When we got sick, we kind of did what we always do when there's a crisis. We say, our marriage is still number one. We're going to get through this together and we're going to be better on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So just having a difficult life does not mean that your marriage is in a winter. It just means you're living life.
Right.
But the way you respond to your difficulties can send you directly into a cold, hard, bitter winter in your marriage.
Yeah, and so listen to this really hard statement. Winter in a marriage might last a month. it could last 30 years
Or a lifetime.
or a lifetime.
Yeah.
If the partners are not willing to make some changes and recognize where they are and treat their marriage like it's their most valuable possession.
Yeah.
That's sad, but that is a reality. So
Yes.
we're going to look at the emotions of winter in a marriage, the attitudes of winter, and the actions, and how you can move out of winter.
Well, we're going to look at how we move out of winter next week.
Okay.
We're just going to look at how to identify it. If you know
Gotcha.
you'll know you're in winter today by the emotions, the attitudes, and the actions that you're currently taking.
Yes.
If you find yourself in that winter, or you think you might ever end up there, next week we're going to talk about here's how you get out.
Okay. So think about some of these things we're going to talk about with the emotions, attitudes, and actions, and think of it reflects your marriage. Then you need to just admit
Own it.
that you're in a winter.
Yeah.
Okay. So the emotions of winter: hurt, anger, disappointment, loneliness, and rejection.
Yeah. He
So-
said something that the husband and wife aren't really enjoying each other, they're tolerating each other.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta go home and tolerate my wife, or here he comes, he's coming back home, and I just gotta put up with him. That's a winter.
Yeah.
That's a winter emotion.
Emotion. Yeah. And he gave lots of stories throughout this chapter of other couples that had just shared their heart and how they were feeling, which is where he came up with all of this information. Very interesting. So a lot of them said they were just unhappy. They were unhappy in their marriage. They felt empty. They constantly argued. Basically, that was the communication, was arguing. Either silence or arguing, instead of trying to talk something through. If you find that you're just being critical with each other, or maybe one of you is just being critical all the time, isn't willing to listen, that's part of winter. You don't spend a whole lot of time together. You're not connecting in any way. There's almost no affirmation or touch in a winter marriage. And either one or both of the people in the marriage have given up hope.
That was the big one for me, was if somebody in your marriage, if one of you has given up hope that it could ever be better, you are in winter.
Yeah, even if it's just one
Right.
person in the marriage.
Right.
So those are the emotions that would characterize the feelings in a winter marriage. Here are the attitudes. So these are kind of closely related. Lots of negative attitudes. They see the worst. They tend to blame the other spouse for declining the relationship. And they gave an example, and this was something that I could see happening in any marriage, where they decided to make a big move for the husband's job. They made this move, and they even communicated and talked about it beforehand. They made the move, and then the wife was having a hard time. So this goes back to that response to a difficulty in life. It was hard. She didn't have friends, and she was missing her family back home and missing everything about where they used to live. So her choice to stay negative, to not try to go make friends, to not try to make the best of it, she chose to be negative and to blame the husband, even though they had communicated about this. She caused her marriage to go into winter because she responded to those feelings
With a negative attitude.
with a negative side. And so think about, with these attitudes, think about a negative attitude either by one or both people in the marriage. It's like a bitter wind in winter.
Nobody wants to stand out in the wind when it's cold.
Yeah. And it makes everything hard.
Yep.
And it's
And
hard,
miserable.
and it's really hard that it could just take one of us
Yeah.
to do that. It doesn't have to be both. So that's difficult. So those are the attitudes. So now let's move to actions of winter. So I've seen this a lot, and it makes me sad. Spouses withdraw within themselves, and they think, I'm just going to ride out this winter.
Mhm.
They're not really doing anything to move out.
You're just making it worse.
Yeah, so what they're thinking is they're hoping for spring, but they're not taking any positive steps to move toward spring. So you could see how that would be really easy. If they found themselves in a winter, it'd be really easy to try to just ride out the storm, to just withdraw within yourself and get silent and don't do anything to try to make things more positive. I'm sure that happens a lot
Yeah.
because it's so easy. So spouses tend to be very divisive, destructive. In fact, it moves into, if you stay in a long winter season and you're not trying to make positive steps towards spring or a new season, one or both of the spouses are trying to get revenge. They want to hurt. They want to wound the other person. The communication is moving from silence to argument. That's back and forth. There's the sexual part of the marriage becomes a battlefield. Sometimes it causes people choose to have affairs, and then it's part of that wounding and hurting each other. And then we put a little note here about, we've just become an empty nest within the last year or so. I think some couples might find themselves right in the middle of a winter marriage.
Winter for empty nesters is pretty common because a lot of marriages are built around kids. They're not built around a marriage, and as soon as the kids are gone, they can't quite figure out why they're together.
Yeah.
Why they fell in love, and it instantly takes a marriage into the winter season. So just like everything in the world that's bad, God can make it good.
Yeah.
And there are some good things about winter. If you're in a winter season now, there are actually some positive things that you can take from that, and some positive steps you can take to move forward from that.
Yeah, and I love that he added this at the end of
Me
this
too.
because this is a lot of sad
It's
information,
hard to hear.
information about a marriage. So the positive side of winter is that the way out begins with hope, and that could just be with one spouse.
Yeah, and if you're a Jesus follower, you can't ever give up hope.
Yeah.
You can't ever stop believing that whatever is wrong with your marriage, God can fix it. God can heal it. We have seen God do incredible things in stories that we thought there's no way this is going to end good. And God always, always, always has the ability and the will to make things good for you.
Yeah.
So you can't ever give up hope.
Yeah, and it even says in the Bible, love always hopes.
Yeah.
It never gives up. So this is interesting that if you can own that you're in a winter, if you're hearing all this and you realize our marriage is in a winter, I am in a winter marriage, that usually will stimulate this desire to bring healing and to make your marriage healthy, which is a good thing. And so some couples, when they realize, okay, we're owning this, we're in a winter marriage and we want more for our marriage, we want it to be healthy and happy, and we want to heal, they seek out help.
Which is great, and it's something that's hard for some people to seek help, but if you're in a winter marriage, maybe the best thing you could do is get a marriage counselor.
Yeah.
We did a marriage counselor a few years ago, and it was one of the best things we ever did. When you're cold and bitter and it's harsh, you might need some help to get out of it.
Yeah. So this is such a great statement that I'm thinking about what you're preaching on in the series that we've just started on Sundays, that you may find that the pain and difficulty when you go through a winter, because I think a winter could be inevitable in a marriage because we're two people, and sometimes we respond to difficulties in the wrong way. We make mistakes. And so we might find that it helps you rediscover why you got married in the first place, what your roots are, helps you reaffirm your faith in God and in your marriage, and to grow in character because it was a hard thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's how God uses winter in a marriage for good.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Well, when I'm cold, I do a couple things. Put on a sweater, turn up the heat, or build a fire.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay in a winter marriage. You can do some things, and we're going to talk about that next week. Thanks for joining us. See you.
Bye.